People share their most ridiculous one-night stand stories.
Like 12 years ago I messaged this girl on Plenty of Fish. We talked for like an hour. She lived like 1 hour away from me, and at like 1 a.m., she asks if she can come over. She drove and got to my place at like 2 a.m. We did the deed and fell asleep. I woke up the next morning and she was gone. I went into my kitchen to get some Golden Grahams and there is a knock on my door. I open it and there she is with coffee and a box of donuts. She hands them to me and tells me she has to go to work. We never talked again.
I had begun talking to a guy on Plenty of Fish who lived in a different city from me, in the UK. We talked pretty much every day. He seemed sweet. One night I went to the local pub with a few friends, got really drunk and decided it would be a really great idea to go visit this guy for sex. I called a taxi. This taxi seemed to take forever on the motorways, but I was obviously drunk and had no sense of time. I ended up pissing myself, threw my trousers onto the taxi seat. The driver didn't notice. I got to his house. I must have smelt of piss and I must have looked a complete mess. We had sex. Next morning, I looked at my email taxi receipt. £81.25. I spent £81.25 to get to a guy's house to have sex that I couldn't even remember. He gave me the money for the train home and we never spoke again. He found me in Facebook a few days later and I added him back. Turns out he is a pretty serious flat earther.
One time my friend John and I drove a couple hours to Boston for an old friend's birthday party that we hadn't seen in a while. It starts as a house party and after that sort of dies down we decided to go hit some bars. I hit it off with a girl, so we broke off from the group and stayed the night at her place. Next morning I wake up, get dressed, and head out into the kitchen. I almost pooped a brick because who is sitting at the table? Freaking John. We, completely unknown to each other, went home with girls who happened to be roommates. Had a one-night stand, and a BJ the morning after, on a cruise ship. We were flirting up at the bar late one evening, and went on a walk around the ship. We ended up going up the helipad at the front of the boat and started getting a little heavy. We went ahead and did the damn thing, only to realize after that the entire bridge crew could clearly see us doing it at the front of the boat like a dirty Titanic reenactment. The next day she came by my cabin and we had a round two on the balcony of my cabin. I got blown while enjoying the view of the Caribbean Sea in the morning sunshine. It was pretty damn great. I used to live in New Orleans. The city gets tourists constantly. All you have to do is give local suggestions for the tourists as an excuse to meet up. I was on Tinder one day and matched with someone who was visiting for the long weekend. I think it was Labor Day, can't remember exactly. We originally planned to go to a famous bar before actually doing it, but she had me meet her at her Airbnb first. Ended up not bothering with the drinks and hopped into bed. After we had finished, I made a joke about how if she missed her flight the next day, just text me and she could stay at my apartment and do this all over again. I never expected to hear a word from her. Sure enough, I get a message at work the next afternoon, saying her flight was cancelled due to some mechanical issue. She asked if my offer still stood. I drove to the airport, picked her up, and went back to my place. Second round was even better than the first because we already had an idea of how the other liked it. We eventually fall asleep. I drive her to the airport the next day and she gets on her new flight and leaves. Haven't seen her since. Probably the one and only time that I was happy with the United Airlines flight cancellation.
I hooked up with a friend, kind of, more of a close acquaintance, right after separating from my ex-husband. I was thrilled with this hookup as it had been a while and this guy was out of my league, like a 10 to my 5 kind of situation. I'm well aware of this, so I'm trying to play it cool. I mean, I want to be at least fun, cool, and show him a good time. Maybe I can work my way into another round if this goes well. I don't want a relationship, but if round 2 is an option, I'm going to strive for it. We go to his townhouse apartment. Yes, the townhouse detail is important. Have an hour or two of fun, and I'm about to go on my merry way. It went well, amazingly fantastically well, and I am definitely going to try for a round 2, so I gotta keep my exit super smooth. So he says goodnight to me, I say I'll show myself out, and he just asks if I care to flip the lock on the front door as I leave. Sure, no problem. I leave his room, and begin to make my way down the stairs of this apartment. The front door is directly at the bottom of these stairs. I'm quietly leaving while doing a victory dance in my head, and as I get to the last 3 steps, I fall. I tumble down the remaining steps and plant my forehead directly into the front door with a nice thump. I get up, bewildered and embarrassed, and decide to just keep going. He's already asleep, he didn't hear that. I'm going to walk out that door, click the lock, and leave, and he'll never be the wiser. I collect myself and go to open the front door, and suddenly I hear him call down from his bedroom, laughter in his voice. I heard that. I don't even remember what I yelled back as I dashed out the door.
Went to a buddy's wedding, held in our mutual hometown of 12K people. Bride was in an optometry program and had a number of friends from the program in attendance. At the reception, I proceed to tie one on. They had a margarita bar and kegs, so it was that kind of affair, and hit it off with one of the bride's optometry friends. Our group decides to depart and hit the town, which constituted going to the towny bar down the street and drinking until we were plowed. I talked the girl into walking up the hill to my parents, who were at the wedding/reception house, stopping for multiple gross makeouts along the way. We get there and do our thing in my childhood bed, and I promptly pass out. I wake up in the morning, vaguely recalling some of the previous night's events, and am totally shocked to see this girl in my bed, situated just down the hall from my parents' bedroom. My stirring wakes her and she takes one look at me and says, "You're gonna have to sneak me out of here, aren't you?" I replied, "Yeah." She was totally cool with it. I went out and took the lay of the land. My parents were already up and in the kitchen, but I had an avenue to get her out unseen and took my shot. She was on it and we made it out clean. I took her to breakfast and found her a ride home, because it was way further than I was going to drive and I had a buddy heading that way. My parents didn't find out for years, and it was way too late for them to be pissed when they finally did. Always appreciated that girl's effort. Not me, but my best friend in college had been speaking to this girl on Tinder and they eventually met up one night. One thing led to another and they ended up back at hers. They started going at it when suddenly the girl ran out of the room and started being violently sick in the bathroom. Turned out she hadn't been feeling well all day. My friend put her to bed, got her a glass of water, etc., asked the girl if she wanted him to stay, she said no, and then he left. To get out of her student flat he had to exit through the kitchen. He ran into the girl's roommate, who my friend had met previously. They started chatting in the kitchen and then start having sex. Turns out the girl's roommate also fancied the pants off my pal. As they were just getting into it though, the girl asked them to stop, then she ran to the bathroom to also be violently sick. Turns out both roommates had food poisoning from their dinner the night before. Back when Yik Yak was a thing, a girl said she wanted a guy to watch a movie with and also hook up with. This was over spring break, so campus was dead. I was at my apartment next to campus because I had an internship and she was a foreign exchange student staying on campus. Anyway, I respond to her and we comment back and forth, then exchange Snapchats. She ends up being pretty cute, and since I had a roommate and she didn't, I made the trek across campus to her place. It ends up she has a bunk bed. It was like a top bunk with her desk underneath type of setup. So I climb up and we squeeze together in her twin-size bunk bed. 5 minutes into the movie, we start going at it. It went about 2 hours, which is not a brag because I did not have the cardio to last that long. I barely made it out alive. We were trying every position we could, but when the roof was only 6 inches above me, it was really tough. We eventually make it to the end, and I walked to the hall bathroom to clean up. I woke up early for my internship, so we said bye and went on our merry way. I didn't hear from her or see her again until she texted me during finals asking if I stole her passport. I didn't, because who would do such a thing? About a week after I got dumped, I posted a shirtless picture on R4R subreddit and a girl in my city was interested. We exchanged pictures and arranged a drinking date. Met for drinks, seemed to like each other fine, agreed to go to her place. On the way there, she stopped at a pharmacy and bought lube. Went upstairs to her condo. We start fooling around. Clothing comes off and we start doing it. A few minutes in, she gets up and says, "You know what I love about one-night stands? I don't have to be someone I'm not. I'm going to go do some drugs, do you want some drugs?" Proceeds to bump coke off her kitchen table. We do it again. She threatens to kill me twice throughout his dirty talk. Walk home in a daze. Pretty confused about life and feeling soul-drained. Buy a burrito. Bump into a friend I hadn't seen in almost 10 years who'd apparently moved next door. Weird night. Had a girl stop me mid-pump, to get up and go home because she was hungry.
Please subscribe to Reddit Ramblings for more of the best Reddit stories.